This is the call to order for the October 16th meeting of the Town of Woodside Planning Commission. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with a roll call.
Chair Weaver,
Here.
Commissioner Apfel,
Present.
Commissioner Tauber, Vice Chair Gar and Commissioner Ganerico are noted absent.
Are there any changes to the published agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, with that, we will move on to public communications. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on issues that are relevant to the Town of Woodside Planning Commission, but which are not on tonight's agenda. The commission and staff cannot act on any items brought up during the public comment period, but staff can take notes, and subjects brought up during the public comment period can be put on a future agenda of the Planning Commission. So is there anyone that wants to speak on a topic relevant to the Planning Commission but not on tonight's agenda?
For those online, if you'd like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. I'm seeing no raised hands.
All right, we will close the public communication period and move on to the consent calendar. The one item on the consent calendar is approval of the minutes from the June 12th Planning Commission meeting. Does anyone have any revisions that they feel need to be made to those minutes before they're approved?
None from me.
No one in the room is asking for revisions, so I'm asking for a motion that the minutes of the June 12th meeting be approved.
So moved.
A second? Okay, we'll vote.
Chair Weaver,
Yes.
Commissioner Apfel,
Yes.
Commissioner Tauber, and Vice Chair Gar and Commissioner Ganerico are noted absent.
All right, that takes care of the consent calendar, and we will move on to the one and only item on tonight's agenda, which is a design review and request for exemptions for a property on Woodview Lane. And I believe the presentation tonight is being made by Kim. So take it away. Oh, sorry, my bad.
All good. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your week. This evening, as we've gone over briefly, I'll be introducing an application for formal design review to demolish an existing single-family residence, attached garage and pool, and to construct a new single-story main residence in the basement, attached garage, detached accessory dwelling unit, detached gym and pool house, outdoor pavilion, pool, and associated site improvements on a property located at 15 Woodview Lane. This project requires approval of a maximum residence size exception and grading exception for grading in excess of 1,500 cubic yards and cuts and fills exceeding 8 feet in depth. The project has been deemed categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15303A, which includes development of new main residences. There are no desk items associated with this agenda item at this time. The subject property is approximately 4.5 acres in size and falls within the SCP-5 zoning designation. The site is bisected by Woodview Lane into one larger portion suitable for development and one smaller portion that currently contains no proposed developments. The southernmost edge of the property is bordered by Portola Road, therefore the site falls within the boundaries of a locally designated scenic corridor. The property is located in the Alkes Priolo zone. However, formal design review completed by the town geologist did not raise any significant geotechnical concerns regarding the proposed scope of work that is anticipated for this property. The topographic survey for this property identifies slopes in excess of 35% along the southern property line that adjoins Woodview Lane and adjacent to the northern property line. The footprint of the proposed pool deck overlaps the slopes in excess of 35%. The applicant has submitted a letter from Liam Braze Engineering confirming that the proposed development encompasses man-made slopes of 35% near the existing pool patio, just south of the proposed pool and at the proposed entry driveway. The property contains an existing single-family main residence, detached garage, pool and pool equipment shed, all of which are scoped for demolition. The larger portion of the site scoped for development has variable elevations and slopes upward from Woodview Lane at an elevation of approximately 484 feet to a maximum site elevation of approximately 554 feet along the southern property line to the east, side property line to the east. The preliminary title report and topographic survey for this property identifies 15-foot riding trail easements and a 5-foot public utilities easement on the smaller, non-developed portion of the parcel that is divided from the primary portion of the parcel by Woodview Lane. In addition, there are 5-foot public utility easements on both side property lines of the primary developed portion of the parcel. The applicant has proposed development of a new single-family main residence, with an attached garage and a basement, as well as a new swimming pool, a detached accessory dwelling unit, a gym and pool house, and an outdoor pavilion. In addition, the applicant has proposed a site hardscaping in the form of a new driveway, a new auto court, outdoor parking, and pathways and walkways connecting the main house and the accessory structures found throughout the property. The proposed driveway is accessed from Woodview Lane and runs along the southeast half of the property. The applicant has provided physical material samples for your review. They're in that box over there. Apologies, I anticipated somebody to be sitting just a smidge closer. But materials for the project as a whole do contain stained wood soffits, natural stone cladding, metal wall cladding, metal frames for doors and the windows, painted metal trim, and low E glass. The project color palette includes a variety of earth tone colors, primarily in shades of brown and gray. The proposed main residence is an approximately 7,336 square foot structure that is set back approximately 284 feet from the property line along with Woodview Lane, and it is located at the termination of the proposed driveway. The proposed home is oriented with the main entrance and garage facing northeast towards the rear property line. The main residence includes flat, variable roof lines, which minimize the massing of the building. The main residence is broken down into a series of pavilions positioned in a U shape that orients around a private entry courtyard on the back side of the property. The design of the residence is minimalist in character and blends in with the rural character of the site. The existing mature vegetation throughout the property and along Woodview Lane, coupled with the low profile of the proposed main residence, results in reduced visibility of the proposed main residence from Woodview Lane. Town Council Ordinance number 2017-583 allows for residence size exceptions. Within the SCP zoning district, the main residence size with the exception is a sliding scale up to 8,800 square feet. Based on a lot size of approximately 4.5 acres, the residence at 15 Woodview Lane may not exceed 7,433 square feet with the approval of a maximum main residence size exception. The proposed residence is 7,336.62 square feet, including the 600 square foot multiplier reduction and garage exception. Therefore, the requested maximum residence size exception shall be granted. The applicant has proposed 3 accessory structures in their scope of work, including a gym and pool house, a detached ADU, and an outdoor pavilion. The detached ADU is proposed downslope and southeast of the main residence. The detached ADU is located east of the proposed gym pool house, while the proposed pool and patio hardscaping located between the 2 structures. The detached gym and pool house is proposed downslope and southwest from the main residence. The detached gym pool house is readily accessible from the proposed driveway and is within close proximity to 3 outdoor parking spaces. The outdoor pavilion accessory structure is located at approximately equal elevation to the southernmost portion of the main residence. The outdoor pavilion is readily accessible from the main residence via connected pedestrian walkway. The detached ADU, gym and pool house and outdoor pavilion would consist of similar exterior materials to the main residence, including natural stone cladding, metal cladding for doors, windows, and siding, and stained wood. The conceptual design review portion of this analysis was conducted by the Architectural and Site Review Board on February 26, 2024, and the ASRB did not express major concerns with the project's design. Regarding building design, the ASRB asked that the applicant provide specifications for all exterior building glazing and that the glass specifications for the exterior windows and doors use low-emission transmittent glass that has a transmittent value near 50%. The applicant has responded to the ASRB's recommendation by providing building glazing specifications, which have called out a transmittent value of approximately 54 to 55% maximum. Regarding the landscape elements, the ASRB did request that the applicant ensure all landscape lighting is shielded, faces downwards, and that no lights are placed within the trees or shining up at the trees on property. The applicant has provided lighting plans that are in alignment with the requests of the ASRB with shielded exterior sconces and landscape lighting that directs downwards. The applicant's design at formal design review is true to the design that was presented at conceptual design review to the ASRB, and the proposed main residence and all accessory structures have retained the same form, materials, colors, and characters as the proposed project that was presented for conceptual design review. As aforementioned, the project does require approval of a grading exception pursuant to Woodside Municipal Code Section 151.22. As the proposed project contains site grading in excess of 1,500 cubic yards and site cuts exceeding 8 feet in depth. The applicant has proposed 3,935 cubic yards of site grading and a maximum cut and fill depth of 9 feet for site grading. The applicant has noted that the site grading design is designed in such a way as to minimize the cuts and fills for the existing site topography while reducing the amount of proposed fill near existing trees and proposed septic system as much as possible. The applicant has indicated that they believe the proposed design has been completed to ensure compliance with the property's fire access requirements without exceeding the maximum driveway slope, and that the design has minimized adverse effects to the site, existing trees, and natural drainage patterns when compared to grading design alternatives. The municipal codes allow for the Planning Commission to approve the grading exception pursuant to 3 findings. Constraints: there are no significant physical constraints relating to the grading in lot configuration, topographic, geological, sewage disposal, groundwater, scenic road impacts, storm drain, vehicular access, vegetation, removal of significant trees, creek impacts, and cultural resource impacts. Consideration 2 is design. All site grading shall be properly contoured, resulting in naturally appearing landforms specific to the site, minimizing abrupt grading changes. And 3, natural state restoration. Natural state restoration shall be accomplished to the maximum extent practical. After reviewing the proposed project, staff believes that the project plans meet the required findings to a grading exception. As a brief summary, I'll outline the main points that staff did utilize to feel as though we can back this exception, which are that the site will be properly contoured to minimize abrupt grade changes. The project design does intend to maintain the existing natural areas on the property to the greatest extent possible. The project has been designed to minimize impacts to the existing trees on property, maintaining the majority of the 200 trees that exist on the site. The site layout follows the existing terrain, placing buildings, the pool, and the accessory structures at different elevations, allowing the site development to step with the property. And the site contouring has been planned to ensure that the proposed driveway is compliant with the Woodside Fire Protection District standards without exceeding the maximum permitted driveway slope. Members of the 15 Woodview project team are here to present in this meeting should there be any outstanding questions pertaining to the project design. And the project application team will provide a brief application presentation shortly. However, staff is available to answer any preliminary outstanding questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gillian. At this end, we'll start with Matt. Do you have any questions for staff?
Actually, I have one. Well, I might have another. It's a procedural question. So I was the chairman of the ASRB when we reviewed this project. I don't think I need to recuse myself because it wasn't about the grading exceptions or any of the stuff that's here tonight, but I just want to get it on the record and make sure. I'm sorry for wasting your time if that's the outcome, but.
You do not need to recuse yourself.
Okay.
You're correct. You did not make a decision on the grading exception.
That was my assumption, and I realized sitting here, I maybe should have checked with that before the meeting, but I'm glad we clarified it on the record.
No problem.
All right, no other questions?
All right. Alex, did you have any questions?
You know, I don't have any questions. I asked a question of Sage before the meeting started, and I should have asked it at this point, and it was with regards to the maximum residence size exception. But the question was, if an exception was required, and Sage's answer was, under the old system, yes, but the old system has been replaced by a new formula from the, with the town council replaced the old system with a new formula. However, the ordinance refers to the old system or to the old way in several parts of it. So an exception is required, even though under the new formula, it's not required. So I'm good.
And just, it is technically still an exception, although all it needs to do is show that they meet the formula.
So as the planning commission, we're checking the algebra then.
Correct. It's just looking at the math. I'm at that point. It's an exception, a resident size exception, just goes to the reviewing body that requires review of the overall project. So sometimes these can just be a small addition onto a house, but it triggers the exception in which his staff reviews it with the building permit. So in this case, the grading exception is necessary, which is why the planning commission reviews the entire project.
All right. I have just a couple of quick questions. It looked like at the conceptual design review phase, when ASRB saw this in February, it looked like the total estimated amount of excavation was between like 3,500 and 4,000 cubic yards. And the current number is still in that same ballpark, correct?
Yeah, so for site grading, we're at approximately 3,900 cubic yards.
Okay.
So that's what we're analyzing is the site grading component.
This may be a question that's better answered by the applicant, but of that number, this new home will have a basement. What number of cubic yards is associated with the basement?
Yeah, so the representative 3,900 cubic yards that we're looking at is site grading exclusive. It doesn't account for broader building footprints or anything like that. However, I can pull up the numbers for us. So this is the overall project grading. See that okay?
Yes.
The line item that we're specifically looking at is site grading. However, 2,550 is currently showing for allocation towards basement, and then we have
Okay.
these additional light well and tunnel components.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. That's it for my questions. So you're welcome to do a follow-up with staff if you want to. Okay. With the closure of commission questions for staff, we'll move on to the applicant, if they or their representatives want to make a presentation.
Come out? Okay. Okay. I am Mike McCabe with Walker Warner Architects. I'm one of the partners there. And I'll keep this brief because it's late. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate your time. And thank you to staff. We appreciate all the work they've done with us to get this far. And of course, the kind comments we got during the ASRB review process. Walker Warner's had the privilege of doing a lot of projects in Woodsides over the years, many projects. And we're especially excited about this project for our clients, Brian and Michelle behalf. I'll do brief introductions because you'll probably want to hear mostly from Jim, our civil engineer, but our client Brian is here tonight. On the line all the way from Italy, I think it's like 3 a.m. James is our great landscape architect, James Lord of Surface Design. And then we have Jim Toby, oops, turned my head, Jim Toby here from Lee and Braze. And I'll let Jim speak to the grading exception. He'll be better than me.
Thanks, Mike. Jim Toby, Lee and Braves Engineering. As you can soon see here before you, we have a fairly large project that is proposed to provide a fair amount of grading on the site. Obviously, grading is something we don't take lightly. We look really closely at it to see, if we can keep it under the 1,500 cubic yards. We know Woodside very well and know that's the desire. However, we also know that there's sites like this where topography, requirements, and just sheer size of the project and site, that it's not feasible to do the 1,500 cubic yards. And this is just definitely one of those projects. Excuse me. And if you've been to the project right now, you've noticed that the driveway that's there is a fairly steep driveway. It does not meet the current requirements of Woodside Fire for steepness. And what we've decided to do is to take a look at what will work. As part of the project, the architect and us and Surface Design looked at the overall impact of the project. The desire was to keep the building, the new house, to be at the general location of the original house, keep the pool, the general location of the original pool, but also realize that the only way to really make this work is to provide a longer driveway because of the slopes. We're talking about 80 feet from, the front of the property all the way up to the top of the hill. So in order to accomplish that, we decided instead of taking the route of the driveway that's there now that goes straight up and just definitely is not compliant, and provide more circuitous route that basically follows the contours better, basically gives you more of a general, maximum slope that the fire department would allow, and get up to the house in a more leisurely fashion that's basically, more conducive for what the site looks like right now. Yes, that creates a fair amount of grading. It creates some retaining walls here and there, but it generally makes in the areas that besides the retaining walls, we're able to sculpt the land a little bit better so it looks more natural and provides a much better ingress and egress into the property. And that's really the bulk of what's causing the grading exception here. The sheer size of the project, not the project, but the sheer size of the site and how steep it is and how we're going to get up to that point. We did look around and see if there's any alternatives we could do to the grading to make sure that we can keep that number as low as we can. And we definitely did some things where we moved some contours around and graded around to keep that number as best we can. Now, obviously, the town's preference is for us to balance grading on site. That's a great idea. We agree with that 100%. But also when you get a site like this where the topography is definitely a moderately sloping site and tremendous amount of trees, we don't want to impact the trees. So I feel it's a better compromise to be able to off-haul all of this dirt rather than try to spread it on site, which would require the removal of a fair amount of trees. So again, we really took into account the site topography and the general idea of trying to balance the final look, the requirements of the town, requirements of the fire department. There's also newer requirements for stormwater treatment, which require us to do a fair amount of what we call bioswales. These are kind of depressed areas where water is entered into and treated and filtered, but that takes up some grading as well. So overall, we're doing a benefit to the, compared to not doing anything, the storm drainage improvements with the creating bioswales, which treats stormwater and removes pollutants, is a definite positive to the environment. But again, it creates a little bit extra grading. So we definitely looked into different options for grading, but in the end, we felt this was the best way to go and resulted in the amount of grading we had. So, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Matt, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one, just to help me understand the situation with the driveway. If you decided to leave the driveway in its present state, what would the consequences have been for the project? In other words, do you have to change this code, or is it grandfathered, I guess is the way to?
No, you can't. Woodside Fire would absolutely require, when you build a brand new house, Woodside Fire requires that the new road be brought up to current code.
Got it.
The correct width, the correct surface, the correct slope.
Got
So
it.
there's no way, and Sage can probably confirm that, but that's.
Yeah, maybe that was a town question,
Yeah.
for planning that I should have asked. I got
Yeah.
my order backward here tonight. All right, thank you. That's another question.
Thank you.
I'm going to make you get up again.
exercise.
Gillian, if you could pull up the slide that had the topo map of the property with the proposed development. If you could just point out where the stormwater drains to.
Ah.
as far as the road and the neighboring properties?
Sure. Um, Well, as you can imagine, topography wise, if you look at the way the contours look, you know, you follow contours and you basically, from one contour to another, it flows downhill. This site is from a drainage point of view, it's actually a great site because everything basically flows from the very, very top straight down towards Portola Road. So what we did in this case is we're capturing water where we need to capture it, leaving the natural terrain where where we are able to leave the natural terrain. Of course, as Woodside and every other city around requires, as you do development and you have new impervious surfaces, you have to capture that stormwater and release that water at a pre-development rate, which basically means you store it in a big pipe and meter how much water goes out at any given time. So we're doing that. We're placing the retention system on site. That comes down to a pipe and that goes actually underneath the road to the little strip of land that's actually still our property. It's a very weird property. I've never seen nothing like this before. But the public road bisects this property. And both the little tiny strip between Portola Road and Woodview and the main property above are both one property. I've confirmed that with Sage in the past. But it's bisected by the public road. We're gonna bring a pipe through and underneath the public road and into that little strip down below and release the water there. It'll go to Portola Road and we're gonna have an energy dissipator that releases and absorbs the motion and energy of the water and releases it slowly in a controlled manner.
Thank you.
Yep.
I had no further questions. If we have no further questions from the commission for the applicant, we would be ready to open the public comment period on this project. If there's anyone here, either live or on Zoom, that would like to comment on this project, now is your opportunity to do so. Is there anyone in the Zoom room?
A reminder for those online, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. No raised hands.
Given that there are no public comments, I will close the public comment period and we can move on to commissioner discussion. And just to pick on Alex because he missed the last meeting, we'll start with him.
Didn't miss it.
No, I don't have any comments. I'm actually supportive of this. I'm supportive of how they've addressed ASRB's recommendations with regards to the building design, specifically the exterior building glazing, landscape elements, specifically with regards to landscape lighting, and then with regards to the formal design review test, how they've met the community character part of it, how they've met the site planning with regards to the main residence and the attached garage, the detached ADU, the gym, pool house, accessory structure, and the outdoor pavilion. Same thing with the building design and the landscape elements. No concerns with, again, as I mentioned in my question to Sage, I don't really think the maximum residence size exception is pertinent. And the grading exception, I'm comfortable with what they've done.
Matt, it's in your court.
Yes, for me, I'm also supportive. My only question, which I asked and was very adequately answered, was, you know, were you were basically required to move this driveway? And the answer is yes. So for me, it seems like a no-brainer. I thought the ASRB comments, as great as they were perfectly addressed here. So I'm supportive.
And as chair, I'm supportive as well, just echoing my fellow commissioners' comments. And as someone that has a non-conforming long driveway, it is frightening how quickly the cubic yards end up if you start looking at options to relocate it. It looks like a large number for the grading, but given the size of the property and using the existing house site, it's sort of, that's the way the numbers fall. So, since if there are no further commissioner discussion or comments, I would entertain a motion in favor of the resolution granting the needed exemptions for 15 Woodview Lane.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Chair Weaver,
Yes.
Commissioner Apfel,
Yes.
Commissioner Tauber,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gar, and Commissioner Gunnarco are noted absent.
It is approved.
You should have been here last week.
Thank you all for your time.
No problem. Sage, did you have anything else for us tonight?
So I'll just add, so your next meeting is November 6th. So given a little bit of time before then, luckily, back-to-back meetings just had. And so I just want to note that we are proposing to bring forward an ordinance for ADUs. Where, you know, if you recall, we had a study session back in June, and we are not going to tackle all the topics at once. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the programs that were outlined in the housing element. And so one of the more important things that HCD was looking for is to allow additional ADUs on properties that are over 2 acres, and also allowing some in the SR district over an acre. And so we'll bring an ordinance language for the Planning Commission to consider regarding additional ADUs on properties. And then we have to formalize changing our definition of emergency shelter to comply with state law. And so that will also be included in that ordinance. So we'll get that report together and out as quickly as we can for the Planning Commission.
No, Alex, you had a question for Sage?
That's correct. And so that's something that we cannot, you know, we don't have control over at the local level. My understanding is that the county may be considering some changes to septic regulations. So a site that can accommodate the additional ADUs, and what we're really talking about is bedroom counts. So when it comes to septic, so sometimes people still have pool houses that count as a bedroom. But in this case, they could put a full kitchen in if they already maxed out at the 2 allowed ADUs. So there's not a contemplation of allowing additional square footage at this time. So if someone's allowed 7,000 square feet total, 10,000 square feet, just would be allowed to put more of that into more, to take some of that and put it into more ADUs.
Just was a hairy ball.
Yeah, no, and I think I know who you're speaking of. He's really been involved in looking at the septic issues, and he's the one kind of spearheading stuff with the county, there's different types of septic systems, it's often referred to as alternative systems, not your typical gravity-fed system. And there's really limitations on when you can use those systems from the county, and they're looking to try to get the people to be able to use those alternative systems as a first option, as opposed to proving that your gravity-fed system has failed. I got it. No, I hear that. That's a really good observation. And yes, we want to balance between having too much stuff to chew on at once. But I hear what you're saying. It is good to look at things holistically. But with our goal right now is to really try to make sure we're in compliance with our housing element and not missing steps there. But that's heard loud and clear. And we'll make sure as we organize the other topics, we start to try to involve it all together.
Sage, I had 2 questions related to ADUs and septic and the housing element. Another aspect of the septic problem that I remember from the study session is that Woodside does not allow leach field deployment on slopes of over 35%, and the counting limit is 50%.
That's a very good question. We are actually contemplating on putting that into this ordinance for November 6th.
it seemed from the discussion at the study session that that would open up a number of lots that are constrained right now with that problem.
It's quite possible it would provide more flexibility with the lots that have steep slopes, yes.
And the related thought tied in with the housing element is part of our housing element is the town had identified 80 some odd single-family lots that were potentially developable during the next housing cycle. And one of the questions that was floating in the air was how many of those sites might be constrained by the fact that with a 35% requirement, you can't put a leach field in there. So that's why they're undeveloped.
It's a bit difficult to note, kind of how it would be on a site-by-site basis. Really have to kind of have analyzed surveys for a number of sites. We do know areas that are more constrained, but we probably wouldn't have a specific number.
Is the town keeping any sort of running tally on, I know we've been tracking the number of ADU permits that we get per year. Are we tracking the number of single-family new developments we're doing per year?
Yes, yeah, no, we have to report to the state annually all of the units that are constructed and demolished each year.
Okay, that's all I had. So unless there are further comments from Sage or staff or the commission, I will bring the meeting to a close.
I have nothing further.
Thank you.